Yamiche, let's start with that. This expected endorsement from President Obama, that is a biggie. What are you hearing?
Well, what we're hearing is that this is going to happen pretty quickly. And he didn't want to step President Obama on the sort of timing of President Biden's address to the nation. He wanted to have the time and give President Biden the time to really talk about his legacy, talk about passing the torch. But our sources at NBC News are saying that President Obama and Vice President Harris have been in regular touch, that he sees himself as a sounding board. He's also been sort of talking to her about what it means and what it takes to build a winning campaign. So it's really interesting to sort of see Obama step in this moment, because so many people on the trail have been telling me they feel like there's a sort of Obama-like energy to Vice President Harris as she kicks off her campaign this week, because so many people are excited. They were, Democrats were so worried and just sort of in all sorts of chaos the last 3 weeks. And now talking to voters, they're like, they're telling me there's a big sigh of relief. And then there's also this feeling of she could really beat former President Trump. They really see her as someone who could prosecute the case. And of course, she's been laying out her thesis, which you just sort of played a lot of the video of that. She's basically saying, I'm a prosecutor. Donald Trump is a fraud. He's a sexual abuser. This should not be a hard choice. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see. But you see President Obama stepping in there. And I think that's really interesting that he is sort of course, as a big gun in the Democratic Party, I expect that he's going to be out on the campaign trail and sort of doing all he can to help Democrats win this election.
Yasmin, we are almost done with the first week of Harris's campaign. What have we learned about the tone and the message of this campaign?
Yeah, well, I think the tone of the message was in those clips that you played of her today in Houston. We know, as Yamiche said, that she's going to be leaning on her prosecutorial background to juxtapose her candidacy versus Trump. We know that she's going to be talking about some of those kitchen table issues that were really centered and focused in her 2019 run. And we know that she is going to be leaning on this momentum and energy that she feels, or that you feel when watching her in these rallies. I know I was in Milwaukee on Tuesday, and I saw just how energetic people were. In fact, when I talked to voters afterwards, the first words out of their mouth was, wow, look at that energy. That energy was there. And some of them even said that in previous Biden rallies, that energy wasn't there. So I think that all of those things are going to be the tone and tenor. But, of course, the campaign is still really evolving. I talked to one source this week who said that they're building the plane as it flies when it comes to their messaging and it comes to other things that Democrats are really waiting on her to talk more. And of course, we saw her give comments on Israel and Gaza, making her stance on that. So I think that all of these things that we're seeing in the first days are going to continue to evolve. But really, that is the tone and tenor of her campaign going forward.
Peter, there was more good economic data today. I mentioned it, the GDP report. We know we've actually seen big box stores cut prices, fast food restaurants cut prices, responding to consumer demand slowing. All positives. However, the New York Times Siena poll shows that just a quarter of voters believe the economy is in good shape. What does VP Harris do with this?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, whether she can sell the economy in a way that President Biden hasn't been able to, right? He has tried repeatedly over the months to pitch the economic success that you just mentioned and try to connect to people's lives. They came up with a phrase, Bidenomics, that didn't work. They stopped using it. The problem is that if people don't see it in their own lives or are seeing it through a partisan lens, which may be the case in some instances, it's hard to convince them otherwise. But the numbers are all good. I mean, right now, 2.8% growth, while not extraordinary, is better than it was the last quarter of Donald Trump's presidency before the pandemic, when he said the economy was the best it had ever been in history. Obviously, inflation is down to much more normal range, and unemployment's low, job growth is good. The stock market is relatively high, although I had a bad day yesterday. In general, all of the indicators are good, but that's not how people see the economy. And that's a trick that Kamala Harris is going to have to try to confront. We'll see if she does a better job than Biden had done in trying to connect this to people's lives. But it's a real challenge, I think, that defies modern politics, because we're used to the old economy stupid phraseology from the Clinton era, and I think politics are different today.
Even though inflation has cooled, stuff still costs a lot. And when somebody goes out tonight to pick up a pizza and it costs $20, and then they're asked if they want to give a 25% tip on that pizza they picked up, people don't feel great. Yamiche, let's talk about this Zoom call tonight, which was absolutely great for the VP. It was a call with Harris supporters. Over 100,000 people were on it. And that is after she's broken fundraising records over the last few days, after she has become a social media TikTok sensation. And now some people are calling this enthusiasm Obama-like. That is a big first 4 days. How does she keep it up over the next 100?
Well, that's going to be the key question. How does she keep this up? But from my reporting and from talking to people who are really mobilizing for her and getting ready to sort of for this 100+ day stretch that she's going to have here before the November election, people are ready for this and ready to sort of continue that energy. You talk about the Zoom call tonight. It was white women organizing for Vice President Harris. I was reading tweets that said they were raising $20,000 in a few minutes, every 20 minutes. That is one tweet that I saw. So it in some ways it follows, and it does follow the Zoom calls that we saw earlier this week. On Sunday, I was on a Zoom call that lasted until like 1 o'clock in the morning, and that was with 45,000 Black women, and other people were on that Zoom call, and they raised $1.5 million in about 3 hours. Black men had their Zoom call, and that's why you're seeing tonight sort of a continuation of that enthusiasm. When it comes to sort of how they're going to keep this up, there's this idea that she's going to be out on the campaign trail a lot. All of my sources that are close to the campaign's thinking tell me that she's going to be crisscrossing this nation, going to all sorts of states, including, and I've said this several times, and I think it's really important, Georgia and North Carolina. She's going to be going to Georgia next week on Tuesday. It's seen as a critical state, a state that could really help her, and a state that also she feels like she's more well positioned in, is what aides have told me, in terms of sort of the way that they're looking at the map, though they're not going to be not going to a place like a Wisconsin, which is where she held her first campaign rally. The other thing, though, you talk about sort of picking up the pizza. One source that's close to the campaign told me that this is really going to be, in some ways, a soft issues campaign. And what they meant by that was it's going to be crime, it's going to be abortion, it's going to be the economy, but not sort of here's my policy, go read my website. It's going to be how do I make you feel better? How do I make you feel safer? How do I make you feel like you're going to have more control over your body if you elect me? That's going to be part of the argument that Vice President Harris is going to be making to Americans. And I think that she's going to be also harnessing all of the different bases in the Democratic Party to sort of rebuild a little bit of the Obama coalition, but also her coalition. This week, I was in Indianapolis where she was talking to Black sorority sisters for Zeta Phi Beta. She's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And together, that's the Divine Nine. They're part of the Divine Nine, which is a group of African-American fraternities and sororities that were founded really on the idea of civic engagement, of service. So even though they can't endorse her because they're nonprofits, their members were telling me that they're out, they're ready to knock on doors, they're ready to make calls, they're ready to do whatever it takes, including, I was talking to someone today, Californians calling Ohio, Californians calling Michigan, having these cross-state calls so that people can keep up that energy. So I think there's going to be a lot on the plate there. And as Jasmine said, they're building it while it goes, but it's all kind of coming together in their minds.
All right, Jasmine, new topic, a very serious one. Today, Harris very clearly and strongly condemned the demonstrators in Washington who burned American flags and wrote pro-Hamas graffiti outside Union Station during Netanyahu's visit yesterday. Well, she did that clearly. Meanwhile, the right wants voters to think that Kamala Harris will just let this happen. She thinks it's no big deal. But the statement could not be more clear. She said there is no place for this in the United States of America. How does she make sure the American people know her position?
Yeah, well, I think that she has to say it loudly and forcefully, like that statement today showed. You know, obviously they took their time really thinking about it because it came out a day later as people were asking where her statement condemning those pro-Hamas protests was. So they took their time. But really that forceful nature, she's going to have to bring that every time something like this happens, even potentially to the DNC if that is how the protests go. But I think we saw her really thread the line here today. Obviously, she was forceful against those protests and condemning them, saying that is never the way to treat the American flag. But then, of course, we saw her just a few hours later after meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, really being empathetic in her language towards the plight of Gazans, towards the plight of Palestinians, creating distance between her and President Biden and his stance on the war. So I think that she's going to thread that line. But of course, this is what the American people expect of her. They expect of her, when something like this happens, to condemn it forcefully. And I think that that's what you saw with that statement. And it's likely what you're going to see going forward as we head to November, as she really tries to present herself as an electable person who can be president.